On board the Gregory boat, the scene is one of quiet yet steady activity. The boat is plowing through the fishing banks off the coast of Lower California, Mexico. Mrs. Gregory and Joan, acting on Captain Bradford's orders, are locked in their cabin, while Jerry and the captain take turns at the wheel where they can keep an eye on the Swedish engineer, Peterson. After a radio message from the girl commander of the Euclidean submarine they know to be following them, Joan Gregory has hinted that Peterson may be the Euclidean electrical wizard Thales in disguise. Captain Bradford is just relieving Jerry at the wheel, and they stand talking before Jerry turns in for some much-needed rest.
I'm all right, Captain.
Yes, I know you're all right, but you're tired, Jerry.
Oh, that won't hurt me any.
Of course it won't. Be good for you if you get enough rest to make up for it. Now you run along and turn in.
Well, I'll go in a minute. But there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about first.
Well, maybe it'll relax you a little to talk. Go to it, Jerry.
Oh, for one thing, look at that barometer.
Huh? Well, looks like we might have a little weather.
Well, we're getting down into the right latitude for a chubasco.
Well, we might get one at that. We're a little too far off the coast for one of those Mexican hurricanes to hit us very hard.
Well, just the same, I've got a notion we're going to get hit by one.
Ever ride one of those things out?
Yep. When I was only 12 years old, Dad took me on a deep-sea fishing cruise with him, and we got caught in a storm down there. The fishermen called it chubasco, and it was sure something.
Yeah, they're mean, Jerry, and they come up quick.
Well, could we get through one in a boat like this?
Oh, I think so, if we were lucky enough to hit the edge of it, and we're out too far to get the center.
Well, this boat looks mighty small when you think how high those waves get, and that wind blows plenty.
That's bad, all right, Jerry, but we've got unusual engines in this boat. Nearly 3,000 horsepower. We can hold into the storm forever if we don't get swamped.
Yeah, if.
Well, we're not in any storm yet, and I don't believe we're going to get in any one, so stop worrying about it.
Okay, Skipper.
You said you had something else you wanted to talk to me about?
Yes. Well, it's sort of about the same thing, but it's about something else.
That's very clear, I'm sure. It's about the same thing, but it's something else.
Well, you know what I mean. It's about the storm, if we run into one, and about those powerful motors of ours.
You sound serious, son. Talk some more.
Well, you know how to run these motors, and I guess it's all right if you stay awake to watch them every minute. But if anything happens while I'm on watch, I'm not so sure I can handle it.
If anything happens to the motors? That's not likely, but Peterson can do more with the marine engines than any men on the West Coast today.
I know he can, and I'm afraid he'll do it.
What?
Well, he knows just too plain much about those engines to suit me.
Yes, I'm beginning to see what you mean, Jerry. If we do run into a storm, those engines are going to mean the difference between getting out of that storm and not getting out of it. And if Peterson is his fellow Thales, he might not feel like helping us any.
That's what I meant.
Well, to tell you the truth, Jerry, I'm not the least worried about Joan's suspicions. Oh, of course, Pete could easily be spending part of his time on the island as one of those scientists, the rest of it around Los Angeles, posing as a marine engineer, but I just don't believe that's the story.
Well, I do. Jones says those men of G-47s are from every country in the world, and if Peterson is smart enough to be as good an electrical engineer as he is a marine engineer, well, he could be Thales easy enough.
Well, I'll admit there's room for your worries, kid, and I'll keep an eye on Pete if we run into trouble.
No, we won't have to run very far. Looks to me like we're in a storm right now.
No doubt of it now, Jerry. In a mighty few minutes, we're going to be somewhere near the center of a man-sized hurricane.
Then I'm not going to turn in.
Afraid it wouldn't do you much good. You'd soon get turned out anyway.
Well, maybe I'd better go and wake up Mrs. Gregory and Joan.
Might as well. They're never going to be able to sleep through this, and they might feel better to be dressed and ready for it.
Well, I'll go and wake them up. Then I'll come back to you.
Be sure and tell them to put on plenty of warm clothing, some oilskins if they're coming out on deck.
Okay, Skipper. I'll tell them. Oh, boy. Those engines sound like the stern's coming clean out of the water.
Yes, who is it?
It's me, Jerry. You'd better get up and dress. We're running into a storm.
I can't hear you.
I said it's Jerry. You'd better get dressed. We're running into a storm. Put on a lot of warm clothes.
We're dressing now, Jerry. We'll put on our slippers and be out in a few minutes.
I'll be at the wheel with Tex.
We'll join you there.
They were already getting up, Tex.
Just as well. This thing is going to be bad. It's coming faster than anyone I ever saw. Must have sneaked up on us in the dark.
Everything's running all right, though.
Oh, we'll get through it, but we're liable to get pretty wet before it's all over.
Is it all right for Mrs. Gregory and Joan to come out here on the deck?
It is now, but if it gets too bad, they'll have to stay in their cabin.
The engineer seems to be making those engines behave.
He'd better. We wouldn't be any too happy here without motors.
Say, Where's the cook?
He's trying to make some hot coffee, but I'll bet he's having trouble keeping the coffee put on the stove.
Hey! That's too rough for me.
I don't know about this thing, Jerry. If it gets too bad, we'll use the radio and ask someone to stand by for us.
Nobody's going to come into the middle of this thing and try to find us in the dark.
No, but they could be waiting to pick us up when we get out on the edge of it.
Can you tell if we're in the worst part of it?
Well, we're not yet, but the trouble with these things is that you can't tell where the center of the storm is. We may be heading right for it.
Well, I hope it never gets any worse.
We'll be all right as long as those motors keep going and the rudder post stays in.
One of those Euclidean submarines would look pretty good to me right now.
It would if that's done. When you get down in the water a few fathoms, you never know there was a storm up here.
Our girlfriend must be right under us with her sub.
Yes, and that's an idea. Supposing you go to the radio shack and see if you can raise her. You may be glad she's following us before this thing's over.
You want me to go and do it right now?
Yes, and take Pat and Joan in there with you. It'll keep them from worrying about this storm.
Okay. I'll see if they're ready.
Is that you, Jerry?
Sure, it's me.
Where's Tex?
At the wheel. But he wants you to come into the radio shack with me. I'm going to call the girl commander in the submarine.
Are we in danger, Jerry?
No, but
I think we are. Joan, you go with Jerry. I'll join Tex at the wheel.
But Mrs. Gregory, the captain said for me to take you into the radio room.
I'll be responsible for that. You take Joan into the radio room and do as Tex orders.
Watch out for the spray when you pass that cabin.
Is the boat able to stand such a storm, Jerry?
I don't know. Come on. We've got to get busy in the radio shack.
Why do you call the radio cabin a shack?
Oh, for the love of mud, Joan. This is no time to ask questions. I'll hang on to my coattail and we'll see if we can get around to the starboard side. Hang on tight, Joan.
I will, Jerry.
Boy, that's getting bad.
It does seem so on this little boat.
Well, this little boat is all we've got right now. Hope I can raise the commander on this thing.
What wavelength were you using the last time we talked with her?
3 meters?
Then she will be waiting for your signal on 3 meters.
I hope so. Commander S1. Jerry Hall to Commander S1. Gregory Boat, Euclidean submarine. Hello, sub. Jerry Hall to Commander S1.
Commander S1 to Gregory Boat. You may proceed, Jerry Hall. Proceed with your message.
Hello, Commander. Looks like we may need you before this is over. The storm is getting pretty bad up here on the surface. What can you do to help us out?
I will bring my command up to 3 fathoms. Drop your bow anchor at once. I will take your anchor with my stern magnetic fin. Reverse your motors. Run them at full speed astern. If your anchor chain holds, that will stabilize you. Drop your anchor at once. That is all.
Okay, Commander. Well, Joan, I guess she thinks it's serious, or she wouldn't do that. You stay here and listen to this radio, and I'll report to Tex and drop that anchor, and I'll come back in here with you.
I will do as you wish, Jerry.
Hey, look out! You don't get hurt by some of this stuff sliding around in here. So hang on the radio table.
Yes.
It's bolted to the deck.
I will take care of myself. Hurry and drop the anchor.
I'm going right now. Hey, Tex! Tex! Mrs. Gregory!
Hang on to the rail, Jerry. We're right here.
I just talked to the commander of the submarine.
Get closer, Jerry. We can't hear you.
I said I just talked to the girl commander. She had me drop the bow anchor. She's coming up to 3 fathoms to grab it with that magnetic fin in the stern of the sub. She wants us to reverse the motors to hold the anchor chain steady while she drags us out of this.
Good work, kid, and that's fine, all but one thing. We haven't got any motors.
What?
The motor stopped, Jerry.
And I'll bet that guy Peterson stopped them.
Looks like it. We haven't shipped enough water to hurt the engines any.
Then that means Peterson is Staley's, just like Joan said.
I'm afraid it does, Jerry.
Boy, this boat's sure rocking around us. I hope that girl hurries up about tying this submarine onto us.
Is Joan in the radio room?
Yep, she's all right.
You go back in with her, Jerry, and you too, Pat.
I'll stay here with you, Tex. Go back and stay with Joan. Will you please, Jerry?
And keep in touch with the sub all the time. Tell her our motors are dead and she may have to use all her speed to keep us straightened out.
Okay, Tex. I'll tell her.
Is the storm getting worse, Jerry? The boat is tossing about much more.
Well, I don't know about the storm, but our engines are dead.
Was that an accident?
No, I don't think so. And the captain doesn't think so either.
Then I was right. Peterson, the engineer, is Thales, the Euclidean.
Yeah, it looks like it. Now keep quiet while I tell that girl sub-commander about our motors. Jerry Hall, the commander, S1. Gregory Boat, Euclidean submarine.
Jerry, the submarine magnets have just picked up our anchor.
Yeah. Now keep still and let me try to pick up the commander. Jerry Hall, the commander, S1. Jerry Hall, the commander, S1. Gregory Boat, the Euclidean submarine. Our motors have stopped. Can you hear me? Our engines have stopped. Can you hear me, Commander? Jerry Hall, the submarine. Hello, Commander. Can you hear me?